Cubans are not a problem for Guyana. Cubans are not a threat to Guyana. On the contrary, Cubans can be a respectful and useful addition to this multicultural nation. No Cuban is stealing a Guyanese job. The reality is that in the sectors where Cubans are working, whether in construction, agriculture, healthcare, services, transportation, or education, there are still dozens of available positions that remain unfilled. The vast majority of Cubans living in Guyana are working hard to build hospitals, roads, homes. In Guyana's field, the Cuban accent is increasingly heard among men and women growing rice or tending cattle. In health centers across the whole region, Cuban doctors, alongside Guyanese colleagues, many of whom were trained in Cuba, diagnose and treat patients. The thousands of Cubans currently living in Guyana want nothing more than the opportunity to integrate legally, without fear of being deported to an island that is now half prison, half hell. These Cubans that arrive legally are already here, already working, already contributing. In light of the recent terrorist attack that has horrified us all, I think that the Cuban community understands the feeling of anger and frustration that many Guyanese have expressed on social media, preoccupied about the immigration the country is receiving and the threat this may pose to internal security. For generations, Guyana endured the departure of hundreds of thousands of its people in search of a better future abroad. Today, that trend has reversed. Guyanese citizens can be proud that their country is no longer a place many wish to live, but one that many aspire to reach. As a Cuban living in Guyana, and as a future Guyanese, if I ever have the honor of becoming a citizen of this country, I hope the institution will find the right balance between the security challenge of immigration and the urgent need for labor to transform oil wealth into higher living standards for the Guyanese people. Cuba has a long history of solidarity and friendship with Guyana. Intelligent management of Cuban immigration could therefore be very useful for the betterment of this country. Guyana cannot allow just anyone to enter the country, but Guyana also cannot afford to lose the good immigrants who are currently contributing to the nation's economic growth. Migration policy should strike a balance between these two extremes. Hopefully, the authorities will consider this approach, and hopefully, the majority of Guyanese, even in their grief over the recent horror, could understand this. May God bless Guyana.